Welcome into your Sports Tonight. Bailey Burmaster alongside Aaron Ladd for your Monday edition. We got a lot to get to, especially because we have Monday Night Football.
I love Mondays. Mondays are just extra yap time.
Because we have a whole weekend to yap about.
Got to recap, look ahead. There's so much. Mondays are wonderful.
Before we dive into our main talking points, and we'll just keep those there.
Okay.
Anything else happen this weekend that you want to dabble into or yap about before we get to what we really want to talk about?
Celebration Bowl was really cool. My first time covering that. Jackson State in the game 3 of the last 4 years. First time they win it. Head coach T.C. Taylor really talked about it not just being a celebration for Jackson State and South Carolina State, the two teams that were participating this year, but really all of HBCU football. No better place to celebrate than in Atlanta. And really, that venue, I just get so impressed by seeing it go from – you go from a high school games to Celebration Bowl.
How they turn stuff.
SEC. I mean, it is just nonstop. The Ben staff.
Were you the one who said something about Falcons game day atmospheres?
I've been asking for more from Falcons game day atmospheres. Yeah. I got everything and more I wanted from the Celebration Bowl.
Okay.
The bands were jamming in there. The food was good. I enjoyed my experience.
That's one thing about the bands, the food.
Yes.
Always top notch. So shout out to the Bens and their people for making that happen. All right, let's get to the topic. Monday Night Football, Falcons facing the Raiders in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium. Have you been to that stadium?
I have. That's where the Chiefs won this most recent Super Bowl. Yeah, I was there in February.
Does it live up to the hype?
The big Roomba, the giant Roomba along the strip. It's cool. You know, the newfangled and the Benz is in this category. SoFi and Allegiant, like. It's like it toes the line between being too corporate. Like I do kind of want some character with my stadium still in 2024. Roomba. Yeah, I want Arrowhead's got a real feel. You know, the bleach. I know we're not getting metal bleachers anymore, but like
their press boxes, meh.
Oh yeah, it's not a luxury. It's not a luxury stadium. It still has the old feel of the old NFL.
We're gonna go off topic here for a second, so bear with me. When you were covering the Super Bowl in Vegas,
okay.
How were you able to manage work life and play life, and what did that look like?
9 nights along the Vegas Strip. My goal was to not really go out until Wednesday. I was there a week before. I was trying to pace myself until Wednesday, and I was blacked on that Monday, the week before. So
and every day
tough.
Did you have to turn content to?
Oh yeah, I mean you're talking 4 and 5 different angles on different stories, doing stuff outside of just the NFL. Yeah. Shout out to UNLV. They let me into some of their practices this last time around. So, yeah, it was good. It trained me. It trained me for the career that I'm in, the long hours.
The purpose of what we call a rally, yeah. Ladies and gentlemen.
Only the strong survive.
I know the Falcons went down later on Sunday, probably to keep from any gambling or extracurricular activities going down. And quite frankly, where this team sits,
they don't have time for that.
There should be no other priorities except getting a dub at this point. They are on a 4-game losing streak, and we found out this morning it was solidified by Adam Schefter. It is going to be Desmond Ridder in his revenge game. Let's hear from some of the players who spoke on the matter before we dive in.
The first person that I kind of, was talking to, my locker mate, was Desmond Ridder. To see him get another opportunity, I'm excited for him. Obviously, I don't want him to have his career day on us. I wish him well.
Of course, I talked to my guy. Happy for him, obviously, that he's playing.
All right, so let's discuss Ridder. Is he going to have his return game?
This has just got all the setup for – I was texting some friends earlier in a group chat. A loss here for Atlanta. All of the other losses have been tough, and they've kind of competed in all the games. I'm thinking back to Minnesota. I'm thinking back to L.A. They had chances to win those games. A loss to Desmond Ridder in this spot, a 2-win Raiders team on the road that is already without some of their best players. Max Crosby announced in the lead up to this game he'll be out for the year dealing with an ankle injury. You start to erode some of the faith in this new leadership if you can't beat this team and this quarterback that we saw just couldn't get it done at a starting caliber level. I'm worried if the Falcons can't win this one, let alone the division title, because I think that's fried for this year. I think if you want to have faith in Terry Fontenot, Raheem Morris, and what the brain trust in Flowery Branch has been preaching this entire time, they got to take care of business in this losing streak tonight.
I won't go as far as questioning everything the Falcons are doing, but I do think it's a severe turning point for the season. It reminds me a lot of last year's Panthers game I can't remember if it was like week 11, week 12 last year, but it was a rainy game in Charlotte. It was awful. Desmond Ridder started. I think he fumbled the ball a plethora of times. It was just a gnarly game that you had no business losing that you ultimately did. And I think that's what this game could become if they don't pull out the win. And it's so funny because you hear a lot of people and talking about this game, they're like, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And then there's some people who are like, weirder things have happened. Weirder things have happened.
Well, the Saints were on a 7-game losing streak when they went into New Orleans and had just fired their head coach. Like, if you're an Atlanta Falcons team right now, you can't overlook any opponent. You can't say the way that you're playing ball this past month. How about this stat, Bailey? The Atlanta Falcons, since Kirk Cousins' last passing touchdown, which we've joked, since Halloween and all that, the Atlanta Hawks have played 20 basketball games. 2-0. 20 games since Kirk Cousins' last passing touchdown in the NFL.
Does he get a passing touchdown tonight?
Yes.
I think so, too.
Yes.
Does he throw an interception tonight?
He absolutely does. I think you can pencil in for an interception in every game from here on out because he's just not as confident.
I will say he doesn't throw an interception tonight.
Oh, you got Kirk locking in.
Why not? Monday Night Football, Vegas.
Only way to go is up, right?
Man, listen, maybe he had a few drinks at the slots and really just rallying. I don't know. I've been very vocal on this program. Ride Kirk Cousins until the wheels fall off.
And there was actually a report on this, since we're talking Falcons.
Okay.
Jordan Schultz, did you see that
No, I
news
didn't.
from him? He's kind of an insider NFL world. He said that there are people in the Falcons locker room right now telling him that Michael Penix is the best quarterback on the roster, and the only reason Kirk is still starting is for optics.
So there's two things there, I would say. Even if Penix is playing better, one of them is a lot worth. It's kind of like if you go back to college, the person who is 100% scholarship is not sitting on the bench. If you're 50% scholarship, you're more prone to be on the bench no matter who's playing better because you're invested in that. I really do think there's a strategy here of, well, if Kirk keeps playing like he's playing, then it's an easy fix at the end of the year to say, hey, it's an open competition. And because think about it, what do you do if Kirk plays lights out?
That's a good problem to have, and I think maybe they were like secretly hoping for that.
Yeah.
But to your point of the wheels falling off, it makes the decision easier for the brain trust.
Correct.
The wheels are actively falling off right now. With Tampa's win on Sunday in LA, they've basically assured that as long as they handle their business, the NFC South title is theirs. So let's say Kirk in these last 4 games somehow finds a way to get the Falcons to 3-1 and Tampa still wins out. I think you still put yourself headed into 2025 saying, Kirk, we gave you a shot. That 4-game losing streak is really what was the determining factor. Now we have to make a transition to our younger guy. We've invested in him. The rest of the roster is ready to compete. Specific to this game tonight, though, I think they win and they keep the race interesting down the back half of the year.
Either way, I do think the Falcons have enough to grasp to use against Kirk in the offseason.
Sure.
I do. Just because he is an older guy. And I think, age is an interesting thing to talk about in the NFL because you always reference Tom Brady and someone who was able to win at the level he was, right?
Not fair. That's just not fair.
Then people would point to Aaron Rodgers. But you could also point to Aaron Rodgers in the last 2 years hasn't been the Aaron Rodgers you know from past. So there's questions there. I also think they say the Green Bay Packers model. Jordan Love only really played in reserve ever. His first year, you give him time, and it worked out. So I don't think they're in a rush, even if, there's always that mentality of it's a 3-year plan. And I do believe Arthur Blank is a businessman, and he's going to give Raheem Morris the same amount of time that he gave Arthur Smith. So I don't think, no matter how this season goes, all hope is lost. But I do think year 2 becomes extra mentally more important than anything else.
Absolutely.
Not even year 3, because you have to see a jump in improvement in year 2 for there to even have necessarily the right expectations for year 3.
Yeah. The messaging we heard from all the brain trusts and Flowery Branch was they were ready to win now. They felt like they were a quarterback away from doing that, and they invested heavily in not just one quarterback this past offseason. They invested heavily in 2. So to take a step back saying you were a quarterback away when you invested so much, It's going to be interesting. I think they win tonight. I think they keep the NFC South as a intriguing race down the back half.
I think the other thing that I find really interesting about the Kirk Cousins discussion is because you really haven't seen him throw the ball that deep lately.
He can't. And shout out Josh Kendall, who does great work for the Falcons on the Athletic. I think Kirk Cousins' quarterback rating past 15 yards is like in the 30s. Like he's not consistent enough to move the ball offensively, and it's hurt the rest of the team because I don't think the defense is as bad as they've shown us over the past few weeks as well. They're just continually being put out on the field and in tough spots where they got to bail out the offense. And hopefully this is a get-right spot because I do truly believe if you lose this one, no matter what the fashion is, the discussion is it's going to get dark.
Oh,
Bailey.
It is. I will say if
dark.
they lose this game, it is going to
dark.
be extremely, extremely dark. We always like to speculate and talk about certain things. We have not talked about this topic all that much. Were you a Kyle Pitts rider in the beginning when you were a Falcons fan? And where do you sit now?
It just hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out, and it's all tied to where he was drafted. Unfortunately, was a top 5 pick, highest drafted tight end ever, and this is now 2 regimes that have been unable to really make it work. So at that point, I start to realize it's not everybody else. It's you. Maybe he needs a change of scenery too.
Yeah. All right, let's keep it pushing. Some big news over the weekend. Georgia Tech beat UNC. They are undefeated on the year. Huge for the women's basketball team.
Yeah, they're 11-0 to start the season, best start in program history, and UNC is no slouch. That was the 14th ranked team in the country. They dominated them from a bench points perspective. I think it was 34-7. This is cool because for Georgia Tech, the men's program has seen better days. Now the women's program is balling out. Let's actually hear from head coach Nell Fortner after this impressive win, ranked win on the road this weekend in Chapel Hill.
To come into your opening ACC game of the year at number 14, North Carolina, and play as hard as we did and at times as undersized as we are, I'm really super proud of this team and their effort and their just continued playing together and their coachability. Just really, really proud of them. It was, what a game. I mean, I didn't think we would get a lead like we did, and North Carolina surely wasn't going to go away. And they didn't. They were tough. I'm just glad the clock ran out because they were coming at us really hard in the fourth quarter, but we hung tough and we get the win.
We'll open the floor for questions. You just raise your hand.
Coach, you had another great game from Danny Hartnett and a couple other players first, but I wanted to start with her because she's a freshman. A lot of people didn't know about her coming into this season, but she's kind of lit a fire for you guys, and certainly in that first half.
Yeah, she's a really she's just such a highly skilled offensive player that is has a great feel for the game, really high basketball IQ, and has just really just bought into everything that we're doing, how we coach her, things we're doing and running, and she's really a fun kid to coach. But that whole freshman class, even though 2 of them didn't play today, the 4 freshmen have really brought a lot to the table for us. And then to go along with the veterans that were back, and they've been difference making.
What about the rebounding? You rebounded about a third of your misses. That seemed like that was a key for you.
There's no doubt. That was definitely a key, and you have to give a big shout out to Kayla Blackshear for that, because I'll just go ahead and throw that. I think she's one of the best undersized post players in the country. I really do. She just refuses to be denied on either end of the floor, but she just brings a physical presence for us that's really, really strong, and she did that today. Even though we didn't have an answer for Gokdang, I mean, she was really, really, really good. So if we play them again, we got to figure out a better way to guard her.
Was there anything in particular you're doing with us being her second career game without a field goal?
Yeah, that's really hard to believe. I mean, I don't know if that's happened to her before?
Once, her freshman year.
Oh, her freshman year.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, because I think she's a heck of a player. So then I guess our defense is pretty good today on her. I mean, but that's hard to believe. I didn't realize that actually. So I'm just looking at it.
Coach, I think my math is right. This is the first time you guys have won in Chapel Hill since like 2012. You're 12-0 on the
That's not here,
season.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Last 7
That's
straight
correct.
here. Yes.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Not an
you're-
easy place. It's hard to win on the road, especially when you're playing against a team as talented as they. I mean, that's just as tough.
You're 12-0 on the season. I think it's your best start. If I
We
read
took
that.
11. 11.
11
Yeah.
since like the mid-70s or
Yeah.
something. For the players that have been with you a couple of years, Tony, Kara, and Kayla, to see this success this early in the season, how much does that mean to your team and to them?
Well, it means a lot, especially in this day and age of where we are with transfer portal and all that stuff. I mean, the last 2 years have been tough on us. It's been hard. But Tony Morgan and Kara Dunn drew the line in the sand and said, no, we're doing it here. We're staying at Georgia Tech. We believe in this coaching staff, and we're doing it here. I mean, they said those words. I mean, it's so, and it's it's hopefully paying off for them, in that regard, because they've got high goals, and they've been good leaders in all of our off-season work, and hopefully we continue to see the payoff of that.
Coach, you mentioned it's a tough place to play, but you could hear Chit Chat Wright's family
Oh my
across
gosh.
the court. How many people did you have here? And
I think we
did
had
y'all
about 40
contribute?
people here. I think that's what our ticket is. So we were like 40 or 50 people here because there's some relatives in the area and all that stuff. So yeah, we had a good, strong, loud crowd. We'll take that.
And then follow up to that, I know this isn't a question coaches like to answer. Do you think your team is getting enough attention and the playing
You know
nationally?
what? I don't even think about that. I mean, you always want to get attention. There's no question, but I've got more things to worry about than that.
Coach, coming into tonight, Chapel Hill was top 6 in the defensive scoring. How do you feel like you dictated the pace early? Do you feel like you played a little bit faster than Carolina's been playing?
Yeah, I think that's something that we like to do. We like to play at a faster pace. We like to push that tempo, and we have players that like to play that way. So that helps a lot too. But that was it's a concerted style of play for us, and hopefully we can keep doing it.
Over here.
Coach, kind of going off of that, like continuing to respond even when Carolina kept returning.
Yeah.
Responding. How do you think, especially like Morgan and Carnegie, sort of like were able to continue to dictate the pace and
Yeah.
the kind of offensive flow?
Yeah, I mean, they really turned up the pressure there in the fourth quarter. That was extremely disruptive. We turned the ball over. I mean, we really shot ourselves in the foot a couple of times in a row. Missed a layup. It was like, so yeah, it got a little tight. It got a little tense, but you've got Tony Morgan, who's got experience under her belt. You got Danny Carnegie, again, has a high basketball IQ. So putting the ball in their hands, I trust it. I have a lot of trust in that. And it paid off for us in the end.
You touched on just us being a little bit earlier, but what do you think it was specifically about y'all's defense that was maybe able to push her out, keep her outside of her comfort?
Yeah, I think our pressure. I think we believe in our defense, and I think our pressure was really, really tough. She didn't see a lot of daylight to the basket. Like she's really effective. She can put it on the floor and drive and scoop and do all that kind of stuff. And I think we just really did a good job keeping her away from that. And yeah.
We'll do 1 or 2 more.
Coach, you mentioned how you all are a bit undersized. This season, you're taking and making more three-pointers than you have in a while. Is that kind of your way of, building a different mousetrap to kind of, have success in this league?
I think, no, what it is we've got the players who can play that way. We've got the shooters who can shoot it. We've got athletes who can drive it. So we're just kind of, we decided this is how we want to play. So that's how we recruited. And it's a fun style to play. I mean, it's something that it suits these players that we have. So we'll see if we can keep having success with it.
Final question.
All right, Bailey, you know what I didn't have on my bingo card for the end of 2024 going into 2025? That's head coach Michael Vick potentially. This news coming out this Monday. 2 different schools, not just 1, 2. One of these makes sense. We know Mike Vick is like DMV area fame, Virginia legend, played at Virginia Tech. So Norfolk State was the first name I saw him attached to. There's a couple beat writers in that area that said, hey, he'd interviewed for the job. There seems to be mutual interest there. So when I saw that, makes sense. Obviously, the former player route is something we're seeing a lot now. Eddie George, Deion Sanders, the list goes on and on in college. And then another name from Adam Schefter out of left field.
Sacramento State.
Sacramento State. But Sacramento State is saying, and I think maybe part of the whole report that they put in with Schefter was kind of them shooting their shot, like, hey, we got $50 million in NIL. We're making a move to FBS soon. We're getting a new stadium. Like, so honestly, this is cool no matter what. I think Mike Vick obviously still cares about the game, is doing the whole broadcast side of it now, wants to go into the coaching side of it. If I had to pick for one of these two, go back home. Do the whole home thing. Enjoy that. And I wish him the best of luck if this ends up coming to fruition.
What I find interesting is I think what people fail to see is, like, just because you played doesn't automatically make you a good head coach.
Okay, so let's do it. I think that's the title of this video, actually. Will Mike Vick make a good head coach?
I'll be honest.
What do you think?
I don't know Mike Vick enough. What I do know is you better be ready to recruit in college. You have to be a people person. You have to be able to connect with people. You have to be able to connect with a generation that is very hard to connect with. I think that is a big reason you see so much movement in the college game today. I think that's why Nick Saban left. I think it's totally different from the college game he knows.
Oh, absolutely.
Or anyone else knows.
Even from 4 years ago, it's way different. Yeah.
And so I don't know if it's, I don't want to say he's going to be bad because, like I said, I don't know him well enough. But I don't think it's as easy as, like, you know what? I'm going to get into coaching and I'm going to be successful. And I think we've gotten in a bad habit, not only in college, the NBA, you name it, we don't give people time. Like, everyone wants overnight success. And if you don't have a good season in 2 years, you're out. How can you expect it was like Darvin Ham with the Lakers.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of hope he coaches. I'd be really, really eager to see how he does. But what say you?
I think two things. I think he has the cultural cachet to be able to just get people's attention, to get these kids who are 16, 17, 18, making millions of dollars now. I think he has the ability to say, hey, I'm Michael Vick. You grew up. Your brothers knew about me. I have a name that kind of cuts through the rest of the big recruiting piles and letters and that kind of thing. I think naturally if guys hear, hey, Mike Vick is interested in me and wants me to play at his school, they're at least going to get a text back. He's at least going to get a text back from those guys. I think also his story is one where maybe he will actually, beyond how many games he wins and whatever the results end up being on the field, I think he actually has a chance to impact lives. He could say, hey, I made mistakes at the highest level. I signed the richest contract in NFL history, most guaranteed money. I had shoe deals. I had a whole city at my finger, whatever, and I lost it all. I think that story and being able to pass that down to the next generation, I think wherever he does that, that could be successful as well.
I think it's important, too, if you're going to use your past, you have to have set guidelines for what is accepted and what is not at the program to make sure there's no gray. And you know what? That's not even just like a Michael Vick thing either.
Yeah, that's everywhere.
I think something that I notice, especially in the NFL, is like, oh, we care about doping or, XYZ. But rarely is anything really made of when we're beating women. Like, that isn't talked about enough, personally, in my opinion. And so it's things like that where I think in the college game specifically, with this generation, with how much movement, I mean, I think about a guy like Tyreek Hill. I went to Oklahoma State. He was at Oklahoma State. He was kicked off the football team for things he did off the field, which have continued to be a problem, but he's still playing. Kind of went off a segue there, but they're just things that I think as a whole generation in football, we've allowed football to be bigger than life.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing of, like, you can sit here and talk about Patrick Mahomes and how much, money he makes, same with Aaron Rodgers, and then we want to hear what their political views are, but no NFL player lives in a normal day-to-day reality. Quite frankly, I don't want to hear from NFL players about what they think, for the mere fact that they're making so much more money than a lot of the people who make the baseline in this country. I think there's things you could clean up. Went on a segue there out of Michael Vick, but I would really like to see him coach and see how he does. I do think he can be relatable, and I do think he can use his past as a point of you're never you can always overcome what you need to overcome, because I think he did a good job of bouncing back.
Yeah, he's definitely reinvented himself.
Correct.
I remember being in the city when I was younger, obviously, but I remember when that whole went down, and it was like, how does this great hero kind of redeem himself now? And had a post career with Philadelphia and the teams after that, and then now going into broadcasting and potentially coaching. It would just be cool to see him take this second chance that he's been given. Yes, he's had a lot of privilege. And have had people kind of lift him up to get this second chance, but.
And I guess that's what I'm getting at. I like that he's reinvented himself. I think he can use that as a tool, but I also think it's important as a society that how many opportunities do people get?
Sure. I also think when these programs, like the same thing with Colorado, like these programs want to attach themselves to a name because it makes them relevant again. Like
I think that's a very fair point.
It's like a huge selling point. It's like Mike Vick's our head coach. Like that now we're being talked about.
Here's the thing: you say they connect to that generation. No offense, does that generation even know who he is? I don't think they do.
When I was saying that, I was like,
I don't want to. I'm not trying to be like sly or anything, but I really think they don't. I've talked to people who are like of that
Lamar
age group.
is their new Mike Vick.
Listen, someone who is a Gen Zer, I guess you could call. We were talking about Adam Sandler movies.
Oh, no.
And they said, "Who's Adam Sandler?" And I said, "You've got to be joking." And they said verbatim, "Wait, is that the guy that wears basketball shorts?"
Okay, yeah, he's got it. So, sometimes you got to break through in multiple ways.
If someone asks you how you knew Adam Sandler, what's the first thing you're saying?
Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore.
Click, also another underrated Adam Sandler
Billy
movie.
Madison. Big Daddy.
Ooh, clip that.
Clip that. We're moving on.
Clip that.
I was like, where are you going with this? And I was like, okay.
Save that one.
Anyway, the Atlanta Dream are headed to Canada. They will play Seattle. Sorry, taking a second. On August 15th. Third time the W has gone to.
This will be the first regular season game outside of the United States, which actually I was kind of surprised by. And
I thought
even more surprised by the fact that it's these two teams. And I know that this is Atlanta. This is an Atlanta story. I should be rooting for the Dreams. They're our partners. We love you. Thank you. But after the year the W just had, with all the stars, all the names, all the attention, for your first regular season game outside the U.S. to be Storm Dream, it was like they put all the teams in a hat and just kind of like swirled it around in there, and then figured the Dream won. No, they've got names: Alicia Gray, Ryan Howard. Yes, we'll see what they can do in their first year under a new head coach. But this just seems like first game outside of the U.S. I mean, Caitlin Clark versus who? And she's not in the game.
See the Suns, the Liberty.
The Aces, for sure. Like,
I'll be very intrigued to see the numbers.
So Vancouver?
Of attendance.
I think there's a preseason game that happens every year. Actually, I don't think. I know this for a fact. There's a preseason game that happens every year in Canada. So I'm not surprised that the first game is happening there, but it just seems like on the W's path to kind of expansion, they're expanding teams. They're adding a new team this year, a new team next year.
Have you ever been to Canada?
When I was younger, I went to Toronto.
Hey, I've been to Toronto too. Oh, what's on your mind? We got like a minute.
You go first. I need to think of something.
Don't put me on pressure.
We can stick with the Falcons.
An underrated Christmas movie. The animated Grinch movie.
Ooh, the new one?
Yeah, from like 20...
With Tyler, the Creator, on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Fire. I like that one.
No, it's severely underrated. I watched it this weekend. Obviously, I had big plans. And I was just thinking, wow, this is such a great Christmas movie, and it's animated, and it doesn't get any love. Usually I'm an Elf girl. Like, Elf is the best Christmas movie. But
the dog is the star in that one, too. Like, he has a big personality and
cute.
stuff.
Yeah. There's his little reindeer ears. The Grinch is almost more Grinchier in that one, too.
He really leans in to, like, just being true anti-holiday season. I like that. I'll ride out on that. I need the Falcons to win tonight, because if they don't, I'm going to be sad.
You're going to be sad, Aaron. Sad boy, Aaron. All right, that does it for this edition of Sports Tonight. We'll have all the latest headlines throughout the week. Stick with us. Have a good night.